first thought that comes to mind from my perception of what law school is like, the quantity of reading is immense. Whenever this question of how can I sketchnote within this realm comes up, I always think about like, okay, what are the constraints placed on you based on like your circumstances? What are the things that you can't control? So within like the law school setting, one of those constraints, or just one of like the dynamics of that situation, is just a ton of reading. So I feel like if I were in that situation, the first thing that I would try to identify is what's my during reading and after reading process. So while reading, maybe you do a bad job of drawing a highlighter. Maybe that's okay. While reading, you highlight. After reading, I feel like I would probably go with an index card approach, because what I'm imagining within like the law setting in particular, there are lots of details, lots of like individual principles, lots of individual case studies, and like specific cases that you probably need to be familiar with. So I feel like for each reading, having this set of index cards, each of which focuses on just a single idea, I would do that quickly after reading. And then like what you have to work with then, if you keep those kind of grouped together for each of those individual readings, you have each of these references for kind of quick review that you could do in different locations, right? If you're studying for an exam coming up or whatever the case may be. The nice thing about index cards is like you've got that, you can take them different places and study in different environments, which is good for your brain. But then also I could see it beneficial when maybe working on a bigger project like a essay or paper or presentation maybe that you have to give. Create this big space for yourself to be able to like organize those different ideas from different sources. You can like, okay, I want to pull in this principle from this book we read. I want to pull in this example from this case. And you can use those as the building blocks for bigger things. And I guess I have a couple of big things in mind. So you could come up with like what you put on the front of those index cards, what you do on the back. Yeah, the diagrams too might not come in until later, but like create these quickly accessible building blocks, like idea building blocks for yourself on those index cards. Because what that set allows you to do, kind of like as you rotate through those, you've got the opportunity for quick study in different locations, like I mentioned. But then like what I would be interested in is more like what does the accumulation look like over time? So let's say that, you have these different sets of index cards connected to different readings, different cases. It seems like those could be reusable when structuring, whether it's a paper that you have to write, a presentation that you have to give. So you could kind of pull from different sources to draft papers or presentations. And maybe like it might not be until this stage where you start to kind of be more on the lookout for like a diagram or a scene that can help provide kind of that higher level visual structure to the thing that you're creating. Because in this case, I think that like while you're doing that reading and those initial ideas, you're probably not going to want to go heavy on the visuals, heavy on like the sketches and illustrations. I would kind of wait until you are compiling the main ideas from, again, a case or a book or whatever it is. When you're combining them, like what's a good, helpful diagram to organize those? Maybe like an overarching visual metaphor. So it's at this stage where you look for an overarching diagram or visual metaphor to anchor that set of ideas. So it's like, how would you walk through that material? And here is where you could actually like give yourself a big table to work with, maybe a couple tables, and maybe the individual cards. I mean, the flow chart is always one that comes to mind, and I feel like makes sense within the law setting of like what's the what's the logical progression through this question, the situation, the thing that you're looking at. And maybe you can use those cards on that table and then like snap a photo so that you get the most of that chunking that you did while studying, and then like the visual reference that you created by bringing these multiple ideas together. The visual metaphor I think that always comes to mind first for me is like the iceberg model. What do people see above the surface, and what actually lives below it? So maybe there's a visual reference or some sort of a scene that kind of can help you anchor the ideas. And that's when you can maybe, depending on, you mentioned some of these concepts are abstract, but at the core of all of those abstract concepts, my sense is that there's like some case, some situation, some real life people that did something to each other or for each other or whatever that led to that principle. So, or led to that abstract concept. So what's the kind of like people focused situation that's behind that concept, and what's like a photograph of it that might help you to like remember that abstraction. Yeah. So thinking about like what photographed situation best represents a specific instance of the concept that you're trying to learn. I'm going to try to capture that. I think I like this one the most within that realm of abstract ideas, because I think the most helpful thing is to think about like a situation that is an individual specific instance of that abstract concept. And that scene, that scenario that you picture, some form of that is what you could sketch out and then like label that scene with the related concepts. And I think there's potential there to get at multiple abstract concepts within an individual scene, within an individual situation. So that's kind of like a continuation of this process here, I feel like. But then kind of as a overarching theme here, it is this piece about finding a process that allows you to keep up with those individual chunks, individual readings, because again, my sense is that there's a large, that the pace of those, the consumption of ideas, the pace of consumption of new ideas is high within law school. So like, what's the sustainable practice for going through those ideas, capturing these individual chunks quickly and helpfully on index cards, maybe. But then what can you do with those building blocks to reinforce those ideas, help you like access them more quickly without the actual cards, but then like build up the interesting stories by pulling from different sets of cards based on whatever topic you're exploring in class that day or that week. I kind of want to make this like this again, just so it's easier to identify what the topic is. I feel like that helps the actual topic within this little sketch note stand out a little bit better.